Hey students, this is Dr. Davis. I am coming at you again with another video. I realized that the last video that I did for you guys cut off. I think the last maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and I was actually getting ready to discuss with you all the different methodological designs and as well as the amount of participants that I want you guys to use for this particular study, for your study. I do not want anyone to get overwhelmed with it, so we have written this course with very specific guidelines that we want you to follow. This way you don't get overwhelmed with, one, how to choose your participants, how many participants to choose, what type of research design you can use, what makes sense for you within the realm of your ability. So many students decide to choose qualitative research over quantitative research. The reason is qualitative research is a little bit more user-friendly for those of us who are not well versed in numbers, statistics. So being a human development major, or maybe you're in another type of arts and sciences type major, you might be more comfortable analyzing your data using words and finding themes and trends amongst your participants or your surveys in order to describe and discuss how your question was answered. So qualitative is basically analyzing your data using words, phrases, and themes that you pull out based on the information that you have gathered. Quantitative research is numbers, where you gather data, information, typically through a Likert type survey that you give to a random sample or group. When you do that, you will gather the surveys and you will run data, you'll run statistics. You can be as simple as finding the average answers to finding the average amongst all of the different participants of a particular topic that you're trying to answer. You might run all different types of, like I said, the median, mean, and mode. You might decide to do a regression analysis. You might decide to do an ANOVA. Most of you won't do those because those are a little more complicated. You'll probably stick to very basic statistics and then just report those. I have posted, I think, one paper that was a mixed design. I think it's under week 3 or week 5, where a student actually did both. They did some qualitative analysis as well as some very basic quantitative statistics. Okay, so you can do both. You can do one or the other. I am encouraging those who are savvy with numbers and understanding how to run very basic statistics, or even more advanced, to do the quantitative. And what you would do with that, you would have to get a sample of about 50 participants. So the best way to do it is to send out surveys via email serve, or another event, if you have access to participants that you can email, or let's say you're maybe doing something with the school, maybe you can get permission from the principal to go in and pass out surveys to the teachers if you're if you're surveying teachers, or if you're surveying students. The students get a little, working with young people under the age of 18 in a study can get complicated, because you are going to have to get permission from the parents in order to have them participate in the study. Okay. With the exception of if the students are at a school where they have already signed a consent form, and that has been confirmed by the principal or the director of the school to say, yes, our students' parents have signed a what is it, a blank consent saying, yes, we can take pictures, yes, they can participate in studies. Typically, I don't know, sometimes that happens, sometimes not. So you may very well have to get permission in order to do surveys with the students if you're doing something in the class. So I'm kind of getting off topic with that because we'll talk about informed consent shortly. But what I'm saying is, for your participants, even if you're doing a topic about children, try to be creative and think of a way that you can do it without children. Like, you might want to do a retroactive study, but maybe if you're talking about what I'm trying to think of a topic that one of you guys have. Self-esteem, social media, adolescence. Okay, so you might want to do, you might want to interview if you want to do qualitative, or you might want to do a surveys with high school students. Well, if that's not possible, maybe you can survey college students and either change it to college or have them think back. Maybe interview college students at Cal State and say, hey, thinking about on your teenage years, how did social media affect your body image, for example? So just think about how you want to do your study to answer your question, and to add and contribute to your topic, the information, in the easiest way as possible. So if you have access to children and it's not going to be hard for you to get an informed consent signed by parents and or the administration of that school, then go for it. If you think you're going to have a very difficult time getting the permission, the written permission, as well as cooperation with the school system to get these children to fill out the survey or to answer these questions, if you're doing a qualitative study, then let's come up with something else. You don't have to change your topic or your research question, but be creative in the way that you are going to execute your study. There's so many ways to do it, okay? So think about that. I'm here to help you guys. This next week, I'm going to have you guys, and for your discussion, talk to each other about ways that you can conduct your study based on your topic to get some ideas. And I'll go in and give you guys some ideas as well based on what you've written. Some of you have emailed me and I have responded back to say, yes, try this or try that. So this is the time, it's time to get ready to think about how you're going to conduct your study. Okay, so here are the basic guidelines. Methodological guidelines. You will be permitted to choose from 4 different methodologies. I have posted these already in a lecture, a written lecture, under week 5. I believe. It's either week 3 or 5. Make sure you go and read those, please. But the 4 different methodological designs or guidelines that you guys need to follow. You can do qualitative, you can do a qualitative study using in-depth narrative interviews. I'm not going to ask you to interview 20,000 people, not even 10 people. Keep it very small because you're not trying to find a significant statistical answer. For qualitative research, you're typically looking for themes and trends that help you answer the question, but it's not going to be, significantly proven. But you're going to say, you know what, there's something to this. So you only have to interview between 3 and 5 qualified participants based on what type of participant you need for your study. Each interview that you do, you have to do a face-to-face interview with each of these 3 to 5 participants for this type of methodology. Your interview should be a minimum of 30, max 60 minutes. Because guess what? After you interview them, during your interview, you need to record it. Use your cell phone, use a tape recorder, whatever works for you. Because then you're going to have to go back and listen to that entire interview and transcribe it, meaning you need to put it in writing. What you said, what they said. And then after that, once you do it for each of your participants, 3 to 5 participants, you go through and you highlight significant things that the participants said about each of your interview questions that you were going to develop about your topic. You're going to find the themes. Okay, what's common about these answers? What outliers are out there? These things will answer your questions, and you are going to come up with the answer based on the interviews that you do. So that's the first type of methodology that you can do, in-depth narrative interviews. The second one is a content analysis. If you don't want to deal with real people, because with the real people, even with the adults, you're going to have to get an informed consent. I will be posting the informed consent under week 5, so you will be able to retrieve that and get every one of your participants to sign. But let's say you're not interested in that, and you want to do a content analysis. And you already have written your bibliography. You're about to do your literature review on all of the articles you've pulled up. If you do a content analysis, basically you're going to take between 5 and 10 documents. Those can be ones that you have already gathered for your literature review, or you can do additional ones for your content analysis. And you're going to go and you're going to compare and contrast what the literature says about your topic and your research question. And you're going, it's similar to an interview, but you're using written word or video or audio to interpret the data. You do the same thing that you would do in an interview. You go and look at all the trends across the different pieces of data that you've gathered, or resources you've gathered. And then you find the common themes, and that comes up with your answer. So, for example, a student that I had last year, she decided that she wanted to study the trends of hoarders, people who have a bunch of stuff in their house. It gets really unhealthy and unsanitary and things like that. So she decided to do a content analysis about the show Hoarders. And she looked at, I think, maybe 10 hours of video, like maybe 10 different episodes. And she compared and contrasted those episodes to find the trends of, I think, characteristics of hoarders. It may have been a couple of other, maybe another question too, but that's the one I can remember. And she was able to discuss common characteristics of hoarders by looking at these shows and writing down and finding the different trends in each of the episodes with a different people. So it might be kind of fun to do that, because you can maybe think of, there might be some other shows or series out there that you want to analyze, and kind of see how people, behave and things of that nature. So see if that works for you. That's another way. And then you don't have to worry about getting participants. So that's another one, content analysis. You can also do a case study where you choose maybe an organization. Like, let's say, I don't know if anybody's doing homelessness, but maybe you can go to a homeless shelter. Or maybe if you're doing something about food and people and how they can, get nutrition, maybe you can go to, if they are low income, maybe you can go to a food bank and you can do a case study on the food bank to see how well they do those things. I'm just throwing some things out there. But if you have access to an organization that will let you kind of like shadow and see what's up with them, see how they're doing, and then that way you can answer your question by doing an in-depth review of that particular organization. It will not be generalizable across populations, but you can conclude based on your answers, based on what you find in that particular organization, maybe how other food banks run, and how they contribute to helping low socioeconomic families and people who need nutritious foods. That's just an example. I'm throwing those out so you can understand what that means. The final methodology that you can do, well, actually, no, it's not the final one, but another one is participant observation or non-participant observation. I think I've spoken with a few of you already or emailed about, if you want to observe a classroom and you're trying to measure something and trying to see how they do with a particular intervention or a particular learning method, you can go in and either actively participate by working with a teacher or maybe doing a lesson if you're a teacher yourself, or you can sit and observe how the students respond to a particular topic that you are trying to study. So if you're thinking, I wonder how movement in the classroom affects learning, that could be one. And you know that a particular school, or maybe the school that you work at or volunteer at, the teachers use movement. And you can go in and see, how do they do after they have had some movement versus before they've had some movement. You can observe that non-participant observation. With this situation, because you're not introducing a stimulus to the students, you can possibly just get permission from the principal to do that. And you wouldn't need parent, because what you're doing is you're not imposing any type of stimulus to the children. You're just there as an observer, and you would need permission to do that. It's always best for you to make sure it's okay for the students to do this. So ask the principal if they think it would be okay for you to get parental permission, and maybe he or she could help you with that. So I would really advise you to do that. The next method would be quantitative. Like I was talking about the numbers. If you've taken stats courses, if you really want to do like a survey like 50 to even up to 100 people, you have to do at least 50. And make sure your sample size is at least 50. And make sure it's a random sample. So if you're going to maybe send out emails to some listservs across the campus, or if you have access to a school and they can randomly, pass out these surveys to the group of teenagers that you want to survey about a particular thing. I think somebody's doing vaping, maybe you want to do it on campus, and randomly select people to answer your questions, then you can do that. Finally, that's the final one you can do. The other thing I want to warn you guys about is being very careful about the type of topics and the way you're going about doing it. I'm not approving anyone who wants to do something very sensitive and actually interview someone that could trigger them. One thing that comes to mind is sexual assault. I think I have one student who's doing that, but I think we're going to do it in a way where it's not going to impose on someone and make them have, flashbacks. And you're not a therapist, so you really don't want to interview someone to trigger them, because that could cause harm. The key to doing any type of human research is to do no harm. So anything that you're doing, think about what you're going to ask. Now, with that said, the next video I'm going to talk about informed consent, and also how to write your interview questions if you're doing an interview face-to-face, and how to write your survey questions. So I'll be doing that next. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about the type of methods you can do. And while you are working on your literature review this week coming up, I want you to make a decision, and you're going to talk about this in your discussion this week. Make a decision on how you are going to go about finding the answer to your question using one of those 5 methodologies. Okay, the first 4 was qualitative in nature. The last one is quantitative, numbers. If you want more information about these type of methodologies, please go to the Babby text. I think I've already posted page numbers that talk about the different methodological designs. So please do that as well. And let's see, anything else? Okay, so your annotated bibliography is due tonight. Some of you have asked for extensions because of extenuating circumstances. I'm answering those emails as I get them, but please try to get it done tonight. Also, then I need you to rapidly start. Go ahead and start on that lit review. Introduction lit review. That's what's due. That's the next thing that's due. In the meantime, be thinking about how you're going to conduct your study. So it's a lot to do. I want you guys to do all this simultaneously, really think about it, because the next step is for you to find those participants or find your content that you're going to do to analyze, whatever you need to do, because I believe in week 7, you are going to go out and do this. So you need to be set up. So you need to be setting this up now as we go along, okay? All right, I'm going to check this video. I hope it works. I'm going to post it, and I hope this has been very helpful. All right, goodbye.